What if I told you Gene Siskel kept a private shortlist of pictures he swore were too good for their own moment? Tonight we unlock that file. Fearless works from the 1960s that Siskel waved like flares, urging viewers to look beyond the marquee glare. For the next hour, the balcony is his. The recommendations are blazing, and each title comes stamped with one promise. You'll wonder how you ever called yourself a movie fan without it. 1. Simon of the Desert, 1965. Picture a sun-baked mesa, a saint on a stone column, and Luis Buñuel twisting holiness into absurdist satire. That's Simon of the Desert, a 45-minute miracle that feels bigger than epics 10 times its length. Siskel raved about the way Buñuel cuts religion, temptation, and modern anxieties into lean, surreal slices, then ends on a beat club dance number so jarring you laugh, gasp, and reevaluate faith in a single breath. The film was financed piecemeal. Producers pulled the plug before a planned feature-length finale, leaving this jagged gem half-finished, yet weirdly perfect. Siskel argued its fragmentary state makes the punchlines sharper. No filler, no sermon. Just cinematic heresy delivered with a wink. Watch Sylvia Pinel's devil slide up the pillar in a fur coat, or Simon bringing down rain with a prayer you're not sure God hears. It's holy farce at desert dry runtime, and in Siskel's eyes, proof that brevity and blasphemy can waltz together into greatness. 2. If, 1968. Gene loved movies that tested authority, and Lindsay Anderson's boarding school bombshell was his powder keg. If begins as a familiar tale of prefects, punishments, and British stiff upper lip tradition, then slowly shifts from realist black and white to bursts of color and outright revolution. Malcolm McDowell, eyes blazing under a mop of rebellious hair, leads classmates in a fantasy, or is it, of armed insurrection against grown-up hypocrisy. Siskel praised the film's slippery tone, 1 minute documentary plain, next minute mythic, never letting you plant your moral feet. Released at the height of '68 protest fever, censors winced, but Siskel called it the boldest anti-institution roar since Rebel Without a Cause. He pointed to Anderson's audacity to treat fantasy and fact as equals. Because that's how teenagers dream change, Siskel said. Cue the rooftop finale, gunfire over Latin hymns, blood splashing on mortar boards. It still jolts. Watch it and feel the spark that made Siskel grin like a co-conspirator. 3. Pretty Poison, 1968. Imagine Anthony Perkins doing Norman Bates again, but this time he's charming, sympathetic, and dangerously smitten with Tuesday Weld's cheerleader from hell. Pretty Poison slipped past 1968 audiences who mistook it for a cheap thriller. Siskel argued they missed a noir-tinged satire on suburban conformity. Perkins plays Dennis, a parolee whose espionage fantasies collide with Weld's homicidal boredom. Together, they torch a lumber mill, drown authority figures, and smile like it's prom night. Siskel adored Weld's performance, cotton candy innocence hiding a shark's grin, he wrote, and lamented that Oscar voters couldn't see past the film's pulp poster. Director Noel Black shoots small-town Massachusetts like it's a pastel trap. Every diner booth and water tower ready to explode. Gene would clip reviews of Perkins' career dead end and scribble, "Watch the movie." He knew time would vindicate this twisted love story, where madness is contagious, and the American dream burns beautifully after dark. 4. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, 1968. Siskel treasured character studies, and Alan Arkin's Silent John Singer may be one of cinema's quietest hurricanes. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, adapted from Carson McCullers' novel, lands in a segregated southern town where Singer, deaf-mute and gentle, becomes confidant to misfits yearning for connection. Siskel highlighted the film's refusal to sentimentalize disability. Arkin's expressive eyes reveal volumes about longing and resignation without a line of dialogue. Rita Hayworth's Fragile Border, Stacy Keach's Alcoholic Activist. Each soul seems to orbit Singer's calm gravity until tragedy snaps the thread. Gene called the finale as inevitable as sadness and as shocking as a slammed door. He championed Sandra Locke's breakout role as a restless teen, praising director Robert Ellis Miller's naturalism, cicada hums, porch swing creaks, turning everyday sounds into a symphony Singer can't hear, but the audience feels vibrating under the skin. Siskel wanted viewers to experience empathy firsthand, and this film remains as Exhibit A. 5. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, 1969. When Hollywood tiptoed into the sexual revolution, Gene Siskel applauded Paul Mazursky's comedy for sprinting straight through the taboo barrier. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice isn't just wife-swapping jokes. It's a razor-sharp study of middle-class morality cracking under California sunshine. Robert Culp and Natalie Wood return from a free-feeling therapy retreat and decide honesty equals happiness, then unsettle their best friends, played by Elliot Gould and Diane Cannon, with confessions of infidelity and open-bed proposals. Siskel loved how the movie mocks, then sympathizes with, suburban desperation to stay hip. Mazursky's split-screen montages and velvety bossa nova score captured 1969's cocktail of liberation and insecurity. Gene often cited the finale, 4 half-naked adults under silk sheets, giggling at their own awkwardness, as proof that sophisticated comedy could tackle sex without leering. He'd grin and quote Gould's sheepish line, "What are we, middle-aged crazies?" before adding, "Yes, and that's why it's timeless." 6. Alice's Restaurant, 1969. Arlo Guthrie turned an 18-minute folk tune into a rambling protest anthem. Director Arthur Penn turned that anthem into a film Siskel called the gentlest act of civil disobedience ever projected. Alice's Restaurant drifts through Vietnam-era America with shaggy charm, Thanksgiving littering arrests, draft board absurdities, and the titular church-turned commune where counterculture, gospel, and gravy share a bench. Gene admired Penn's documentary flourishes. Real townsfolk play themselves. Sheriff Obie reenacts the infamous garbage bust with deadpan pride. The plot, thin as a guitar string, and that's the point. Siskel argued the movie captures a generation's vibe better than manifestos. Its loose rhythms, its distrust of straight lines. And the draft scene, where Arlo is judged not moral enough to join the army, remains weaponized irony. Whenever Thanksgiving rolled around, Gene said he'd cue the movie and remember a time when protests smelled like turkey and burnt coffee. 7. Oh, What a Lovely War, 1969. Richard Attenborough's directorial debut transforms World War I carnage into a candy-striped musical revue, and Siskel was stunned by its audacity. Soldiers march across Brighton Pier singing, "It's a Long Way to Tipperary," while casualty numbers flash like baseball scores. The camera glides from trench mud to white-clad generals picnicking on a chalk cliff. Satire so visually extravagant, it hurts. Gene defended the film against critics who found the tone flippant, insisting the high kitsch spectacle intensifies the horror. "Every melody is a tombstone," he wrote. The ensemble cast, John Gielgud, Maggie Smith, a dozen cameos, play war as vaudeville, each joke boomeranging back as body counts soar. The final shot, endless crosses sprouting on the South Downs hillside. Siskel said the image haunted him longer than any graphic gore because it sneaks up behind the laughter. Watch it and feel a brass band march you straight into disillusionment. 8. Zed, 1969. A juggernaut everywhere but the U.S. box office, Costa Gavras' Zed electrified Siskel. Part courtroom thriller, part political scream, the film fictionalizes Greece's 1963 Lambrakis affair. A left-wing leader murdered under government cover-up. Shot like a newsreel, handheld mayhem, zooms, sirens, Zed tears through corruption with rock and roll urgency. Gene called it the cinematic equivalent of pounding on a locked door. He admired Yves Montagn's stoic idealism, Jean-Louis Trintignant's corpse-pale magistrate pursuing truth, and Mikis Theodorakis' score, which throbs like protest chants. The censors in Athens banned it. Chicago audiences shrugged. That indifference drove Siskel crazy. He argued the film's universal message, power fears daylight, should resonate everywhere, warning viewers that democracy dies not with coups, but with paperwork and shrugs. Every time the film flashes its title card, any similarity to real persons or events is deliberate. Gene leaned forward and whispered, "That's journalism disguised as suspense." 9. Midnight Cowboy, 1969. Yes, it won Best Picture, but Siskel maintained Midnight Cowboy was still misunderstood, filed under gritty novelty rather than human tragedy. Jon Voight's wide-eyed Joe Buck drifts from Texas to Times Square, clutching a cowboy fantasy of paid romance. Dustin Hoffman's Ratso Rizzo limps into his life, a hustler scraped raw by urban apathy. Director John Schlesinger shoots neon and grime like they share the same pulse, while Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talkin' floats over scenes of silent despair. Gene loved how the film shreds the American dream, yet offers one of cinema's most tender friendships. He pointed to the bittersweet bus ride south, Ratso feverish, Joe shedding cowboy drag, as an elegy for illusions of both glamour and masculinity. "It's not about two losers," Siskel said. "It's about two people who finally see each other." He urged young critics to rewatch and find the compassion hiding behind the X-rating label. 10. My Night at Mauds, 1969. Conversation as cliffhanger. That's what hooked Siskel on Eric Rohmer's Winter White chamber drama. Catholic engineer Jean-Louis Trintignant, spends Christmas Eve debating Pascal's wager, love, and moral compromise with free-spirited Maude, Françoise Fabian. Snow piles outside. Tension thaws slowly by the fireplace. Nothing more happens. Yet Gene swore the film was suspenseful as a ticking bomb, because the bomb is conscience. Rohmer's crystalline framing and long takes let silence sting. Each glance carries 10 pages of unspoken desire. American distributors feared subtitles, and philosophy would scare audiences. Siskel countered that the film is gossip in high IQ clothing. Who wants whom, why they can't admit it, and whether virtue is luck or choice. He insisted that listening to Maud's smoky laugh or Gene's nervous stammer is as thrilling as a car chase. By dawn, snow muffles footsteps, and Gene steps into a marriage he hopes is fate.